Why trade routes outlive every empire. Empires rise. Empires fall. Capitals burn. Borders dissolve. And yet movement continues. Not because power survives, but because roots do. This is ACHRONIC, a long-form documentary project about power, geography and time. Not events, not heroes, not chronology. Structures beyond time. Trade routes do not belong to empires. Empires attach themselves to roots. Long before states existed, movement was already shaped by terrain. Not by law, not by authority, but by resistance, distance, and repetition. Paths formed where travel was possible again and again without collapse. Empires never invent circulation. They inherit it. They arrive where movement already converges and place control points along its path. Passes, straits, valleys, crossings. Power appears centralized, but circulation is doing the work. When an empire expands, it does not create new routes. It captures existing ones. It taxes them, protects them, redirects them. Authority presents itself as origin, but it is only an overlay. This is why collapse rarely stops trade. When power weakens, administration fragments first. Borders blur, garrisons thin, capitals lose reach. But routes remain functional. Merchants adapt. Caravans reroute. Ships change flags. Movement survives collapse because it was never dependent on rule. Empires mistake control for permanence. They assume order flows outward from the center, but circulation flows inward from geography. Routes select centers, not the other way around. When access to flow is lost, authority becomes irrelevant. Empires that endure longer do not dominate territory more effectively. They manage circulation more carefully. They extract value without blocking movement. They skim flow without interrupting it. The moment control restricts circulation, power begins to decay. This is why empires fracture along routes before they collapse entirely. Ports defect, corridors shift allegiance, passages fall silent or change hands. What remains standing often governs very little. After collapse, routes attract new powers, different names, different symbols, the same geography. The land remembers movement. Power only borrows it. Empires die because they confuse domination with permanence. Trade routes remain because geography does not negotiate. What survives history is not rule, but motion. Not authority, but access. Not empires, but the paths they never owned. ACHRONIC. Power fades. Geography persists. Time remembers routes. A route is not a line. It is an agreement between limits. It forms where energy can be spent predictably, where slopes do not punish every step, where water, shelter, and visibility arrive often enough to sustain repetition. This is why routes persist even when names vanish. They are not cultural artifacts. They are mechanical outcomes. Empires rise by converting movement into revenue. They standardize weights, measures, and schedules. They impose checkpoints, permissions, and seals. They turn passage into a ledger. But the ledger is not the route. It is a layer placed over it. When authority fails, that layer peels away. The surface looks different, yet the underlying pressure remains. Circulation does not require stability. It requires continuity of possibility. Even disruption becomes part of the system. Detours appear, intervals change. Risk is priced in. The route survives by shifting form without changing function. This is why control is always temporary. To control a route, power must constantly pay for it. Maintenance, enforcement, protection, credibility. The moment that payment falters, movement finds the next viable path. Empires do not lose because they stop wanting control. They lose because the cost of keeping circulation legible exceeds what the system can extract. And when extraction becomes desperate, it becomes obstruction. Taxes rise, permissions multiply, security becomes predation. At that point, the route does what it always does. It adapts, it bypasses, it relocates. Collapse is not the end of movement. It is the redistribution of movement. The new order is rarely invented. It is selected by the same constraints that selected the previous one. So the question is not why empires die. Empires always die. The question is why routes remain usable after every death. Because geography does not require legitimacy, only access. Because the land does not care who governs, only what can still pass. And over time, that is what history preserves. Not the symbols of power, but the corridors it could not avoid. Empires are episodes. Routes are infrastructure. They outlast decisions because they are made from constraint. What looks like continuity is not tradition. It is the same problem returning, and the same terrain offering only a few solutions.